quick word of prayer?
I don't.
All right, that'd be
Let us
awesome.
let us pray. Dear God, thank you for this wonderful day that you've allowed us to see again on this February 14th. We pray that our meeting will be something that we can use to your glory, that we can learn things and to improve our stations wherever we may be in the country. We pray all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Elson. That's awesome. All right, so make sure you can hear me well. I'm going to turn on my extra special flashlight there. And so it looks like our other member may be coming in. All right, so you may need to make someone a co-host, Aaron. Thank you. All right, well, welcome. I'm really excited. I'm glad everyone's here.
Donuts on your eyes, on your glasses.
Is that too bad? All right, I'll bend it over here like that. How about that? All right, I don't want the donuts. All right. Well, welcome. I am Chris Barron. I'm currently the executive director of the NACFM, and these roundtables have been a real blessing to me. And so for those of you who have not joined us before, welcome. It's great to have you. And we want it to be informal, and we want to just enjoy a time together where we talk through things that are related to what we're working on every day. And we thought adding this more routine, hopefully every other month, is an opportunity to really get behind some things and hear face to face. And we started this during COVID, and it's been a real blessing. So I'm glad to be on board with this. It looks like our vice president is jumping on now. So good. So I'll start us off by just saying thank you if you put questions out there, and I'd like to go through some of those. And that's our purpose, is to get to those first, those who have RSVP'd. Any concerns before we get started with, I know someone had technical concerns. Did Steve make it back on? I think he did. And now I see James is popping.
I'm on audio only, Chris.
Okay. All right. So I see your telephone number down there. Good. All right. So let me take the top question on my spreadsheet. And thank you, Elson. I appreciate that for leading us off. If you take a day or a weekend off, how do you disconnect from the phone, email, text, messages, etc.?
Exactly.
Okay. So somebody has posted that question. So remember, we're in a roundtable format. So everyone's got probably some good ideas about how they do that. Evidently, we've had similar conversations about this before. So this is happening, I think, more and more often. What are your recommendations for how to manage a weekend or a vacation? How do you disconnect? How do you handle that?
Come on.
So you screen your voicemails for one. You know, you can't answer everything, but emergencies have to happen. You have to delegate it to somebody that you can delegate it to handle things. And there's no good answer probably, because stuff's going to blow up all the time.
All right. So Ken, who would you delegate to?
Well, I'm fortunate now in my new position that I have a maintenance supervisor that works under me that's really, really good. And he can handle most everything. Or you know, there's got to be, I don't normally work on weekends, to be honest with you. I'm able to not do that because I've got enough part-time staff that can cover what we need to do, and they're able to handle most everything. Now, if something big happens, you know, big pipe breaks, fire type of thing or whatever, I'd have to be involved. But in my last position, I would try to delegate it to either you know, a porter that can handle that, or you know, my business manager or somebody like that could fill in for me when I'm not around, on vacation or whatever.
If you didn't respond to a call, there's a weird alarm. There's a flooding in a weird closet that not many people have a key to. How are they going to deal with it? What's going to happen if you don't respond? They can't get in touch with you.
They're going to go down the phone list. Kind of, it's not a formal phone list, but they're going to start calling my maintenance supervisor directly, or the, you know, another staff member that's around that might have a key to it. Fortunately, my pastor can get into most everything, and we don't have a lot of too funky keys to deal with.
When you say your pastor, that's also your boss?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So I don't feel as confident about my boss doing things technical at all.
Thank you.
But what I do feel confident in, and you should see that embedded in my question, was that he will act, like he will step up if I'm not there, if I don't respond. And clearly he doesn't have the knowledge, and my knowledge would make that situation go very fast, easy, simple, clear guidelines. But if I'm not there, if there's something going on, I think part of the answer to the question is there is someone delegated, even if they're not trained. For me, my response to Tori, who says, give it to me, is, have you been training your people, or have you been keeping secrets? Like no one, you don't want to share. And you hold your job so tightly that you are the only person who can. And is that an issue in your own life, where you're unwilling to?
The main issue was I've been running we're short staffed. So we had snow coming in every day, every day we're in at 3, 4 a.m. in the morning time, shoveling and plowing. It was nonstop. So we had a sunny day. And so unfortunately, everybody was off for those days that it was snowing, except for maintenance, which is sort of norm for here in Colorado. And then everybody just started hitting me up with eSpace eSpace was going nuts. Text messages, hey, can we get this going? Can we get this? It was just nonstop, but everybody knew that I was off. But it's just easier to call me, and then one of my other maintenance guys was on stop, was here, but he doesn't necessarily know, how to get the HVAC on, how to get all this stuff going. So, it was an interesting day, and I'm like, why did I just stay home? I should have just went right into work and just handled everything. But, when your entire staff and passers and everything take 2 to 3 days off because of ice, and they're playing catch up, you get the phone calls. So, yeah, it was one of those days. I'm like, all right, Roundtable, log in. I'm sending a question. What's everybody else do?
Other thoughts that come to mind when you're trying to disconnect from your phone and you're getting what some call blown up. Your phone's getting blown up.
I think,
So-
go ahead.
Oh, go
Lara?
ahead, Allison.
Allison?
Well, yeah, I was going to say cross training is very important for your people, but I think even if they're cross trained, you have to empower them to act, because sometimes they'll be a little bit nervous to act, maybe. But particularly with me, I think I need to let my people know that it's okay for you to make a decision. If I entrust you with that, go ahead and do it. You don't have to call me for every small thing, but feel free to do it. And if something's wrong, we can always fix that. And the chips will fall where they may. But I think you have to make sure your people realize that they are empowered to do it.
Amen. Lara?
I was going to say we have an on-call number, and I have 2 guys that report directly to me, and they share it. And every once in a while I'll take it, but most of the time they do. And the great thing is that even when the pastors, if I'm off and I get text messages, I specifically respond to them to please call the on-call number. And now they're getting to a point of knowing that. Because the reality is that my guys aren't going to learn how to handle the emergencies unless they actually handle the emergencies.
Amen.
And they know to call me if they get in a bind. If I'm not available, they know who to call to get approval to spend money if they have to spend money above and beyond what they can do. But otherwise, if I get a call from them, I know it's really bad. I mean, we had a lift station. We have a lift station with 2 pumps, and they both went down 2 weeks ago.
Ouch.
I got that call. So in the middle of our 2,000 person women's conference, I mean, it was spectacular. It was perfect timing. But that's what they do. I get called if it's a significant enough emergency that I have to be involved, and they know it. But otherwise, I've told them that unless it's life or death, or unless there's something that I need to know about, I don't want to be surprised out when I come. Call me, text me. You can reach me, but I don't give all of that availability to even our pastors. So
let me state on the word on call. We've just in the last 2 years started using the term on call. And for us, the term on call only means during Sunday or Wednesday night. And it's a new training step because we've not done this where it's a text phone number or a remote phone number. It's radio only. They're on campus. And so we started delegating to our crew slowly. You're an on-call guy. You take the radio call. Now I turn my radio off. I go teach a faith group or sit in worship, and the on-call person responds. And so it's a new learning for our young guys, and they're starting to get that feel. I had trained my lead supervisors to be that on the weekends for years, and they know you're to represent me if you're the lead supervisor on campus. And so that's my maintenance supervisor, custodial supervisor, and the event setup coordinator. And so they can represent me. They will step in, and they know it's okay, lead, and only call me if you need to. But the word on call we just started using recently, and that's during a service. So that's coming along. They're young and they're learning. Any other thoughts about trying to disconnect? I think empowerment, as Elson said, training is important. So the empowerment part should be the case with your boss. Hopefully he will step in and feels empowered to take authority. And in the case of Lara's scenario, someone needs to call the stink wagon to at least pump down that lift station until those pumps are repaired. So that's an easy call, really. It's just some people have just never done it, just. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I came in late on this one, but we were under an old model with trustees on Sunday morning. So I actually have 14 different volunteers. So I rotate them on Sundays, and they are my go-to person on Sunday morning. Pastor doesn't call me, so I'm never on site on Sunday morning, which has been a huge blessing because these guys just step up and they know they've got to handle whatever the situation is. Now there's times when they call me, hey, I can't get this air conditioner working. And if it's not life or death, then don't do nothing. We'll figure it out. But we had a sprinkler head bust Christmas Eve. So sure enough, I had to come in. It's not a fun Christmas Eve, but that's what happened. Yeah, I flooded the basement, but I had 6 guys here that helped me clean it up and avert damage. So that's the on-call. I'm on call 24/7, but I have key people that are the go-tos on Sunday. I'm not expected to be here either, which is great.
Christmas Eve was a loss of power for us as well. And then the day before Christmas Eve. And so then we had a big show Christmas Eve, a lot of candlelight service. And so that loss of power meant I was down here our only day off for the holidays. And then we had all of Christmas services.
Yeah,
So,
my sanctuary air handler went down that morning, so I had no heat in the sanctuary. But fortunately, I was able to get surrounding heat to at least maintain 62 degrees on a 5-degree day. But and had the sprinkler head bust, so it was a banner day. So, but God's good. Got no complaints because I had some great people step up and take care of things.
good job, Frank.
That's the trustees. That's huge.
Yeah.
Let me add one more thing in here. It's, everything is exactly what y'all said, and it's training and communication. Like I'm going to be gone for a week in Mexico in March, so nobody's going to get a hold of me anyway. So I'll have communicated to everybody before then who to talk to, who to handle things, and how to deal with stuff, and go back to the training that we've done before.
How about emergency response binder that people know where it's at?
Yeah.
So an emergency response binder should have at least a page in there that says, for this problem, call this person. Like at least fire, who your best plumber is, who your best electrician is, who your best, I guess, roofing, maybe, some of your key contractors and who currently owns the contract, so that those cross-trained people can open that binder and go, oh yeah, we're going to call this HVAC company because we already have a relationship with them.
For us, that binder is on the counter, accessible to all staff. So even when the trustee isn't here, like at night or something like that, they know to call me, and my custodians know to call me, but I can direct them to the binder. Hey, go shut this thing off if I need to. So yeah, that binder is getting thicker all the time, but try and keep it simple because nobody's going to read it. So make it accessible and simple. That's the best thing you can do.
Good.
I just broke ours up per campus. That way they don't have to finger through, the whole thing. So they just look at the campus address and grab that binder and off they go.
Very good. All right, well, we'll move on to the next question. The next one on my list is Spencer. Spencer, you want to tell us about your question about multi-site?
You're muted.
I don't remember what my question was. about
Okay, I'll read
multi-site.
it. All right, I would love any sage wisdom and words of advice, and I'll just stop right there. No, okay, he
Yeah,
says,
yeah, we're opening a second campus real soon. And yeah, just any advice you guys have would be
About-
graciously appreciated.
About what?
About everything.
multi-campus, multi-site.
We
Yeah.
got 5 campuses. What do you need to know?
I don't know. I mean, anything and everything. I have no experience with that whatsoever. So any just sage words like, hey, make sure you do this, have 2 people here this day, and that sort of thing. I don't know.
Get extra
anything-
help.
Yeah. I mean,
Is it
we're absorbing another church.
Is it a
Fortunately,
school?
yes, there is a school. Yes.
It is a school. So you're taking over, is it going to be a church and a school or just a
We're-
school?
We're taking over a church that houses a school. The school is becoming its own entity and leasing the space. That's my understanding.
Where are you located at?
Just outside of Atlanta.
Okay. So one of the big things I can recommend is making sure that you have time that you can walk through that school once a week with nobody in it.
Okay.
Every classroom, every bathroom, everything.
Mhm.
Just pick a day that you don't have to walk around with teachers and because you're going to get stopped.
Yeah.
People are going to ask you questions. You need to find a time that you're comfortable. You can be in the evening time, or in my case, it's 5 a.m. in the morning time. I walk through every campus. I make a list. I see things that I normally wouldn't with full of kids, students, parents, and stuff like that. So that's been my number one thing.
Okay.
I think for me, it's going to be the processes that you have in place have got to be shored up and solid. And then you reproduce yourself. So if it's working, then do what's working everywhere and make sure it's solid. And so if you're going to put your guys in the field doing the PMs or the work orders, the repairs that you find during that off walkthrough that Tori's talking about, then they need to show up with the processes in the training necessary to be professional as if they're an outside contractor, because they're going to come in with a shirt on that's got your name on it because they're coming into a school or something. And then they're going to be able to follow those processes in an efficient way instead of making multi-trips back and forth. They've got their tools with them and they've got their procedure with them and those kind of things. If the sites are near enough to each other, then many of your PMs might be duplicated, or you're doing multi-sites at the same time. Say you're going to do drain PM or gutter cleanouts or something. You just do all your campuses on the same week, and that's the job for the week. But if they're far apart, then you need to have clear designation of location. And so in most CMMSs, that's another field you may not have been using, a building field or a campus field. And so then you've got to keep those T's crossed and I's dotted, because which bathroom at which campus, because there's going to be the same room number at both campuses. And so those processes have got to be solid so that you don't have the extreme inefficiency of that rework that occurs.
Spencer, are you inheriting a staff too, or do you have to restaff it?
So now a lot of this is I'm like second or third hand information. I'm like the last guy to get the details. But my understanding is we're inheriting 2.5 staff. So the lead pastor over there, there's a worship guy that only works on Sunday, and there is a full-time, incredibly skilled, knows the building really well, facilities guy. So I'm going to be leaning on that guy a lot because he really knows everything over there because he's been there for longer than I've been where I am. So I'm excited about it because I'm getting a really skilled guy that I could potentially use here if I need him. And I've got a great, rapport with all of my contractors. So I don't personally have to do everything. I don't have a team of maintenance. Like right now, my team is me and 3 part-time guys. we're small enough here, but we're opening that second campus, so I'll probably just have that one guy over there. I don't really know. And he's only contracted to stay over there for a year. So,
But are you going to be his boss?
yes, well, it's my understanding I am. I don't know if they find out he's better than me, he may end up being my boss.
And so,
So
going-
can I give,
Yeah.
go ahead, Chris, sorry, man.
I'm just going to say, in reinforcing the tribe part, your tribe, your processes, your style, make that clear, and and kid glove that thing. You don't want to lose
Yeah.
that resource, and you want to love on that guy. But if you're the boss, then you want to kind of come in under there and say, okay, what we're going to begin to do in the next 2-3 years is develop the processes over here that are similar.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, we've already met several times. He's a great guy. He seems very open. But the future, the future, who knows? We'll see what happens. So,
Well, we took over well, when I first started on, we had one guy at one of our other campuses that we took over. It used to be a Gold's Gym.
mhm,
So we had to remodel, I mean, there was a lot of things coming in. So I actually went and just moved my office over to his office
mhm.
and worked with him to learn what, he showed me around the building so we could start getting those processes in place. But what I also did, because I didn't want him to be just all by himself, I had him switch and come on up to the main campus and work with all the guys and get that family report going on. And then that way they all started switching out and working with him at that campus, and then he would learn our campuses as well. But just getting those processes in place, so it, because you're going to get the phone calls,
Yeah.
and it's really helpful. But just to bring him in to learn what
Mhm.
it's huge.
Cool. Yeah, like I said, I've already, we've been out to lunch. I've been over to that campus twice now to meet with him. I had him show me his priority list because, this is originally built in like early 1900s and then added on to 5 times kind of building. And I just said, hey, you show me what's most important to you for us to fix when we remodel this building. Trying to earn his trust by, hearing what he deems most important that needs attention. So,
I think that you reminded me of a conversation I had this week about the information that's lost when you have turnover. And when there's people who've been there through a lot of renovations or construction phases, there's knowledge that there is hardly any way to put on paper. And I give you an example. We hired a company for a lot of money to come and do a master plan back in like 2007. And then in 2008, the market kind of crashed, and that data was kind of useless because it assumed the market trend we had at the time prior to 2008. And so, but that work was still done, and it's good information, it's good data. But then, 10, 15 years later, it's a different crowd, it's a different culture, it's Gen Z, Gen X, whatever shows up, and there's different personalities, but there's some really good data in that. And most of the current staff didn't even know that was done. And so it's important to go and make sure we don't lose it. It doesn't take precedent, but we keep it on the table and some talking points and say what work was done, what's behind these walls, where is some of the old plumbing. And we need that information so that future work is not as expensive. We're not redoing the same work that's already been done. We bring that knowledge to the table, and those people are valuable. They have knowledge, and you don't want to just throw it out. Yeah, we don't want them to change. The new culture might have some good in it, and we want to see where we're going in new directions, but we don't want to throw away the old. And we want that guy. We want his knowledge. And so we want to and make sure none of that is thrown out and thrown away because there's new leadership. And not that we have to go to the old way or there's sacred cows. We just don't want to lose the value of it.
right. Yeah.
How many have
I was going to say that.
multi-campus? How many multi-campuses with us today? So Lara, Jamie.
Awesome.
All right, Frank and Jason.
How do you guys work it with scheduling and hierarchies and whatnot for your campuses other than your main campus? How do y'all manage that?
Event driven.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have Service U. or head service you. We have eSpace now, and each campus runs their own form for eSpace as far as the events go. And then as far as maintenance goes, we have facility guy, myself here.
Mhm.
I have one right-hand man, and then our other main campus, large campus, has a facility guy, but the 4 smaller ones do not. So we just tag team and do what needs to be done for bigger projects and smaller projects. A lot of times we'll hire out if we have to.
Yeah.
Because we can't handle both of them. Can't handle all 6 of them. But yeah, you got to be careful that you're not inundating yourself and trying to get all the work done yourself. Make sure you get your vendors involved. Like Tori said, get that guy, the other campus involved in your campus, have him know your place.
Yeah.
And make him feel like a part of your team. That's huge. So
Awesome.
yeah, Russ and I work hand in hand, and his right-hand guy will help me and my guy will go help him, and we do whatever we need to do. And,
Okay.
yeah.
Great.
That's the best thing.
Awesome. Thank you,
Now,
guys.
I'll say one last thing and we'll move off that question unless there's someone's pressing, has to mention something. Is that, as we mentioned before, if your CMMS has an additional field of some sort or a ticker or a tag for the building or the campus, that's important. What you just talked about and what Frank just mentioned was you may want to add a field for criticality or priority. Or level of intensity, like how as important it is. And so whatever that field is in your CMMS might be priority, criticality. And maybe we don't get to those low things. We stay on the high ones. And so one campus's high is going to beat another campus's mid, even though that campus has been your baby for years. You say, no, I've got a critical over here on this other campus. I've got a 9, and over here you got a 5, so it's using that field well and saying, let's get on those criticals or those priorities. And instead of letting the size of the job or the customer that you have the relationship with win, you let that priority win, because it is your core business to keep air on or roofs not leaking, those kind of things.
Cool.
All right, let's go to security. So I got a question here from Jason. You want to ask your question, Jason?
I would, but you gotta stop asking a question 2 months ago and then we're gonna remember it.
Does anyone have any experience with FEMA security grant that is scheduled to be released soon? So that was your question on the thing, unless I've got your name rotted up wrong here.
No, you got my name right. So we, if you all haven't done it yet, I would highly recommend it, whether you're gonna go for that grant or not. We actually did have Homeland Security come out and do our assessment for 2 out of the 3 sites. And it was well worth it. There are items that were noted in there that don't cost anything, that will make the church safer. That it's not, you would think like, we should all know how to think like a criminal, but not all of us comes naturally. So I was impressed with some of the things that I, learned, and I'd highly recommend it. It was free. You just have to call them up. There's every state has a representative, and they can get you who your Homeland Security people are. If you're going to go for that grant, you don't have to do Homeland Security. You can do your own, local police department, fire department, sheriffs, anything, or you can do it yourself. You don't have to have an third-party vendor do it, but it works out. But just wonder if anyone's gone through this. We were going to do it last year, but we didn't have the assessment done. It was too much to do in a short amount of time, but it seems the funding is there. We've heard a lot of positive from some of the facility managers that have a quasi group in Southern Chicago. And so, yeah, we're lined up to turn it in. Just wondering if anybody had any experiences, positive or negative, and any tips going forward.
Well, if you guys recall, at one of our conferences, we did have FEMA representative come in, and we even had a group, and he gave a presentation on how we can lean into that, and that every state should have a website with their name on it referencing this group and pointing towards the concerns. And then they show some statistics on the type of the crimes that are occurring, and you can keep an eye on that. It was talking about the types of crimes affecting different groups. You guys remember that training? and they offered to come out and do those assessments. So Jason, what did this cost you on the assessment side? You said you've done 2, but not 3.
It was all, so 3 were done. It didn't cost us anything for any of them. It was 100% free. He spent, it takes 4 to 8 hours depending on the size of your site. And also, if you're going back to, Spencer's question, how different your processes are from site to site. So he was able to do, I have one site that's 149,000 square feet and one that's 49,000 square feet. And he did them both in less than 4 hours. So we broke them up into 2 different days. We also did the third day. That third day is a third site, but we don't own it, we rent it. And so we actually had the entity who owns it do the assessment. So because it's government contract, we don't get a copy of it. I just have to ask them to help provide it. But no cost. It was, it's almost silly not to do it unless like you really just don't want the government in your church, because it was well written. It wasn't judgmental. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to like what they say. But I did not find a negative from it, even giving up my time for 2 days.
Very good. All right. And so the best way for us to get in touch with them, you're saying, is reach out to.
Yeah, I mean, I could send out who my representative is, but unless you're in Wisconsin, it's not going to help you. But maybe they can say, well, if you email them and say, well, who do I have in Texas or whatever, they might say, call this person. But yeah, all I have is my guy from Wisconsin, which I'm happy to give.
All right. I'll put the link here for the chat in the chat room for what we saw at that national conference. It called CISA, CISA, was who came to our national conference. And so if you'll start researching CISA, CISA.gov, you'll see sort of the frame.
Well, here's an example of something that we were not thinking. So I have a brand new site. It's not brand new, but it feels brand new because of COVID. It's open less than 3 years, but we got shut down 2 months, once we opened up from the statewide shutdown. Well, it's pretty much state of the art. It's got all cameras everywhere. It's got, fob systems, lock key. I mean, it's got keypads everywhere. I mean, for security, there's not much that we thought that we could do. Well, what happened is during the investigation and looking at our largest site was that for business continuity, if something happened and because of COVID, all of us probably went to streaming, and streaming was a big way for her to get her message out. Well, that never went away. Like there are people who would prefer to stay at home and get the message and not go out for whatever reason. And so now, instead of that being an alternative way of getting the message out, that has become that's a new venue per se. So you take that venue away, then you've really shut somebody down. And so because of that, the assessment for our largest location said that we need to be able to have a continuity in case we lose our streaming. So now we're able to put a grant for putting online streaming to our second site. And so really the hope is that we never really need to use it, but our tech department benefits because we couldn't afford, $100,000 for that type of capability. But now I can get it from security, by just, and we didn't even know it. Like I didn't come up with this. I'm not that bright. Like this came up from the agent who came up with an idea on how I could get another $100,000 for another site, because we didn't know, what we would want with that. And so just by asking probing questions, we found a thing that we can buy that had nothing to do. We would have never thought in a million years that this had anything to do with security. We were just thinking about getting the message out and how, that would be cool. Now and also the same guy who generally does this write up for you is on the committee who decides who gets the money.
So did he ever say at any time, I'm with the government, I'm here to help?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's awesome.
But I mean, hey, he's still a soldier. Like he's still in he's been the soldier for like 40, 50 years. He's still in the reserves. Like, so he's not going to say anything different.
Okay, good. All right.
But yeah, you probably should, I should have checked, make sure my wallet was.
All right, let me add, if no one else has anything on FEMA, since we are sort of on a security topic right now. Let me add that there are grants for a lot of things. And so there are classes to take on just how to file for grants. and how to put together a great package for grants. And so those are options for you. And as Jason said, when you get some of these contractors involved, they will help manage that. For instance, we have used a guy who does energy assessment. His name's skipping my head right now. Anyway, Colby May, for instance, does that. And so his is energy with a purpose, meaning that some of the money goes to missions. And so he knows that Duke Power and these different energy companies offer, rebates and grants. And so he can help leverage you getting those forms filled out. And so that money can be available. So look into grants.
I'm gonna try to put in the chat line. I got an email and it's got all the webinars coming up of the grants coming up. So you can ask them questions about it, but there's like 7 of them for this particular one.
Very good.
I'll try to get it on the thing for you.
All right, so we've got Genesis Elevator with us again today, Jeffrey, and he's talked to us in the past. He just says, if anyone has any elevator concerns, he's on the call. Any concerns? I know we had a long elevator discussion last time we were together, I believe.
Yeah, how do you get out of a contract you don't like?
Ah, yes.
No,
You missed
he
our
doesn't have to
conversation.
answer that.
That was the question last week.
How do you get rid of Schindler? Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I had that magic ball that I could tell you. I don't know an easy way without getting penalties.
No, I was kidding. You don't have
Okay,
to do
good.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, the industry's just, it's gone south, and I'm trying to
Amazing.
resurrect it, but I can't fix everybody.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you, Jeffrey. All right, let me move on to the next question then. I've got one from Scott Hammond. I think he jumped on the call. Scott, you want to ask your question?
Scott, you're muted.
Yeah, buddy. All right, I'm going to do my best Scott Hammond impression. No, go ahead, Scott.
So, yeah, again, that was a couple months ago. What was my question there?
That's terrible, you guys. Jason, it was just like, anyway. All right, so the question was, what has surprised you so far this year? What has surprised you so far this year? Balloons over Montana.
We're still eating those crappy wafers, and those cost like $1 a piece, communion things. Like, when are we going to stop doing that?
So our church calls them Lunchables. I call them MREs because I'm prior Navy. We call them sea rats. We've got a lot of names for them. We got away from them, and we put some elders behind tables with gloves on, and we've gotten everyone to go to the tables now. At the tables, however, we have changed. We did different things where we put the Lunchables in the trays. Ministry Resource, who was at one of our conferences, has come out with their own new Lunchable, and it's got a really good cracker in it. So, or bread, I guess, bread body, the bread part. So I'm impressed with it, and they realized there was a huge need during COVID, and that they started running out and stuff. And so they've got a new one. I like it. It's easy. We've had the kind where it's two peel parts on the same side. That's confusing. People peel off the juice when they're supposed to peel off the bread. Those are very confusing. But here recently, we went to those no gluten crackers, the Jewish, what do you call those? Matzah
crackers.
Matzah crackers. So, and the matzah crackers break along no clear fault line. Okay, have you ever broken these things? They're a mess. And so they make the biggest mess in the worship center, and they are as dry can be. And so to keep from spilling juice, they cut back on the juice in the cup, but they go big on the cracker. And so now you've got this huge dry cracker in your throat, and it's sharp and it doesn't break along it. So then you've got this little bit of juice, there's nothing to wash it down with. And it's so they may be making a statement about Jesus's body here or something, but the lead pastor is on stage leading this Lord's Supper, and the last service, and he bites down on that cracker and it gets stuck in his throat. He cannot even move on to the juice. And like he is coughing and trying not to, and he can't talk, and then he's whistling through the cracker, he's like, and it's almost like someone's got to go rescue him. And I thought, now's the time we're going to drop the cracker, and so I don't know what's next, but we have tried just about every model you can try. But we got on that as what surprised you. So the question on the table right now is, what surprised you the most?
And the reason I asked that question is, we kind of found that January 1 is a reset for a lot of things. And, I just wanted to know if you have had that same feeling when you got back this year.
What
For
else?
me, I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
Chris.
Go, Frank,
For
please.
me, I'm shocked that we have entitlement in our own staff at the church and how everybody is out for just themselves and not thinking about the ministry as a whole and how we move forward as a whole. And that's looking back and talking with my boss about it. Satan's really trying to tear the church apart, and he's having success by tearing staff apart, and that ultimately will be the demise of the church. So that's what really shocks me, is the entitlement of the younger generation that's moving into the church to lead ministry, and they think that their stuff is more important than everybody else's, and that's what's really surprised me.
Other thoughts?
I have to agree with that completely. I've spent we have several renovation projects going on, and departments are moving into new spaces. And the number of conversations I'm having regarding furniture and how we need to design the space to attract the right new young people in is ridiculously frustrating to me. And not because I don't think that we need them. I do. The younger generation, we need them in the church. We need them. We're going to lose, our churches will get smaller if the younger generation doesn't come up. But I also agree that I feel like right now I'm personally struggling with the thought that that's how we're trying to grab them, instead of helping them see the vision of what the church is, that we're here to help people follow Jesus. That's what we're here to do, not to get the most comfortable, multicolored, whatever chair, comfy chair they want and new, latest and greatest murals on the wall. I mean, I think sometimes I'm afraid we're losing sight of the reason why we're doing what we're doing. So I hear that.
For us, that's the same thing. We just spent about $1.5 million on renovating student ministry space, which was highly needed. I'm a proponent of student ministries. I've been involved with it since I was in my 20s, and this will project students forward and make them feel like they're cared for, which is awesome. That's what we needed to do. But we're literally arguing with the pastor for probably 2 months whether the stage should be 8 inches off of the ground or 16 inches off of the ground or not at all. And I don't care. The students are what matter. Does the stage really matter? Some people want it, some people don't, and it's ridiculous how we're fighting about this stuff.
Anytime we have these kinds of conversations, and I just want to lead in such a way that I remind each and every one of us that we are sinners, each and every one of us.
Yeah.
And if we are a good sinner, that's a bad word, then we know that we're part of the problem. So we should look first inward. In an extreme ownership, we talk about that, the book that Jocko and Babin came out with, Extreme Ownership. You first look at yourself and you say, okay, am I part of the problem? Am I part of the solution? So I got to own my part. And so I just am reminded in that, because the pastors got up and preached about unity. And with our current political situation in America, and there are these other issues, it does creep into the church. And I have reminded the groups that I lead, what unifies us first? What do we have common ground on? What makes us something that we can first stand firm together on? And then let's move from there and have a discussion about where we differ. So that we can leave reminded that we agree on something, that we have common ground. And so all of us are made in God's image. All of us, he has died on the cross for. All of us have been given a great commission, even though many of us have skills for some smaller local thing. But the Great Commission is the same for all of us, So there is those common things we stand on, and we say, hey, don't we have this in common? You're made in God's image. I love you because God loves you. But now let's move into that hard discussion. And so to Lara's example, we're helping another church here locally, and they have their first building, which is the top of the hill beside the graveyard, is so old and so dilapidated that they've actually hung a sign on it that says no one's allowed to enter because it has asbestos and it has the black glue, it has the lead, and so they really condemned the building. And so the new pastor that we've helped get over there, and we've restarted the church with a new name. I go out there to help him install a playground, and I've done an audit of their building, and he says we can't tear that building down until a couple people die. Now, to Lara's example, you can't let the old people also prevent some change, so we can't tear the building down until someone dies. Come on. Now, who's going to convince that person? We've got to have common ground where that person realizes, hey, it's full of asbestos and we can't do ministry because we can't tear the building down, so we can't build the next building. So we're waiting on someone to die. And that can be the pendulum swinging to the other side. Then, as Frank says, the young person, and then we say the young people come in and they want a new color of paint on the walls. And you're like, okay, I'm going to paint in a couple years because it's in the maintenance reserve account. When we get there, that's the color you'll pick. Any other thoughts about what has been surprising you the most this year?
Well, on the question, I just wanted to say we've had a real big uptick in attendance starting at the first of the year. And I know that's relatively normal, but I think from what I understand, it's been a pretty big uptick in attendance. And I don't know if surprising is the right word. It's cool. But it's good. But I wanted to add something to what you were saying earlier. And of course we have to draw our lines in the sand and have a boundary. But one of the things that kind of lit me on fire for what I do for a living was at the previous church that I worked at before I was here. One of the things that drove me crazy was that the upward sports kids used the student space, and the athletics ministry liked the tables to be set up differently for upward sports than the student ministry did on Sunday morning. And I was in charge of the crew that had to completely reset the room. So I would get incredibly frustrated about what's wrong with you people? Why don't you understand that chairs are chairs and tables are tables? And if you sit in them, you still hear the same message. And the idea that they were trying to get across was basically, we want the tables to be a little bit further apart for these upward kids because a lot of them are unchurched, and if it makes them more comfortable to raise their hand and claim Jesus, if they're a little bit further apart from that other group over there. And that really kind of hit me in the face. If that's what it takes for one kid to accept Christ, it's worth it. So, now, of course, you don't want to go painting rainbow stripes all over your church just to bring in, make this person feel good about themselves so that they'll accept. You have to have some boundaries, but to a certain degree, I think we have to remember why we do what we do, because the end goal is people finding Christ, and that's most important. And if it means that we've got to move those tables a few more times or do whatever, then that might well be worth it in spite of our frustration. So that was just something that I was thinking about when you guys were talking about the silly stuff, because I know I encountered it too, and I just want to slap people, but hey, it is what it is, right?
And Spencer's, you've hit the nail on the head. And as a leader of your team, if they sense your frustration about an idea or topic, it will be prolific in your organization. And now facilities is going to get a bad rap with pastors or a certain minister. So it's important that you remind them of the core mission, and hopefully you know it and you've adopted it. And I remind my team that we are here to serve. We want to be in service. That's our role. And we do submit to leadership of the church. And when appropriate in private, we will call things out in private and say, hey, come on, give us a break. We're setting a lot of tables up. And I really need to hear from you that this is important, because my guys are spending a lot of time on it and it's becoming a money issue, but then when you're back in the field, it's like, hey guys, we're here to serve, we're here to support, little kids are going to hear about Jesus. So good. Any other thing that surprised you?
Along with that, I'd be curious. I mean, I'm Southern, even though that I'm up here in, although it could be argued that I used to call this Yankee land, but I think that especially certain parts of Wisconsin are just as bad as they are down south. It's just, they call it chew and they call it dip down south, but it's blaze orange everywhere up here. So, and they don't have the Southern draw. So and I don't have it as much as I used to, but one thing that's been a topic up here is the trans conversation, because that seems to have really just, especially when talking about kids and what they go through, it's tough, and I don't want to go there. I'm not asking where people are on their spectrums as far as their church and things like that, but it has been something that we've had to talk about more this year than we have any other year, and that does have facility implications. Here's one, doesn't matter where you sit on it. Have you ever tried to find a bathroom sign that doesn't have a gender on it? It's not easy. You have to custom get it done, because if you have to be so careful with it, because you're the church. So if you do one small thing, you put the wrong bathroom sign up and it gives the wrong image, you just basically said how you putting up a silly sign so someone could use the bathroom. You just changed the theological, what the whole church believes in. And so it's so difficult. You have to kick gloves on everything. So that trans conversation, and you would think that would be mainly for teaching pastors, but no, it's knee deep with us as well.
Yeah, make sure you clear those kind of things with whoever's in charge of that. Like our marketing girl is in charge of colors and signage, and so I will run it by her before I mount it. And so that conversation came up with us this week. We started a Spanish church in our church. It's a church plant within the church. And so there was a big debate about how, is it us or is it a plant or is it a separate church or are we supporting them? And he said, why doesn't every one of these signs say Baño? And I was like, what? You want them all to say Baño? And he was like, yeah, we're gonna support Spanish church. They need to say Baño. And so I looked all over. I can't find a sign that says Baño. But what I did realize was that going to signs.com and custom making your own signs was actually cheaper than buying those goofy gender specific signs. And I was shocked by that. So we're going to add signs, and a Spanish guy wants it to say Baño. You can get Spanish signs that say hombre, but you can't get one that says Baño. And so I was like, you want it to say Baño, but it doesn't, we can't even find them, so we're going to custom make our signs, and then it's going to be our theme. So I'm excited about that. But not for these other political reasons, but because we're starting Spanish church, and that's going to be the start of the sign change, I think, in the campus.
My 2 cents there is go back to scripture. What does scripture say? And hold to that. And if your church and your leadership doesn't want to do that, then you got to start questioning what they're believing.
Yeah.
But hold to scripture.
Yeah, that's good. All right. If there's no other surprises, people are surprised this year. All right, I've got a few more and we could wrap up a little early. I know sometimes we offer an hour and a half, but I know a lot of us are busy. I put down in my notes, has anyone used variable refrigerant flow with linear expansion valves on existing equipment? All right, I'm looking hard at that right now. So what that is VRF, variable refrigerant flow, but they've come out with some linear expansion valves that allow you to use existing air handlers with the VRF outside. And I'm really looking hard at that. I wanted to know if someone had experience with that. All right, what about this tax?
Chris, what is
Yeah.
the difference between the VAV and the VAF?
All right, so VAV is variable air volume, and that's a VAV box. It's a small air handler box that changes air speed or air volume, amount of air to a room. Variable refrigerant flow is a compressor that changes how much refrigerant is flowing in the line. Okay, and most VRFs are very expensive and use cassettes in the classroom, if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, we just had some installed and they are not turned on yet, so I have no experience with it whatsoever.
Okay.
Once I find out, I'll let you know, because yeah, they just put 13 in that room that we just renovated.
Awesome.
And you use that in place of a chiller or something of that nature?
Yeah, a VRF would be in replace of a chiller.
Okay.
Yeah, or a large compressor, an
Okay.
outdoor compressor. Yeah, typically.
Just
Yeah, then we just bring in outside air just to move the air around, so you don't end up with stagnant heated or cooled air.
Yeah, if you
So
use
you got-
cassettes, in
yeah.
the field, if you use cassettes in the field, then you don't have to run
Yeah.
ducting, but then you need fresh air brought in. So you need a
Right.
fresh air unit.
Yeah, so they're energizing the system as we speak, and yeah, I'm interested to see how it turns out, because we've got a whole bunch of old units that are going down that they're recommending to replace with this, but I'm a little leery right now. They're having a hard time getting them running.
Oh, yeah.
Chris, we've had VRF for 6 years in one of our buildings, and it's been a nightmare.
Really?
Yeah, we're looking at probably a $300,000 swap out to replace it, because we have a Tesla. We need a F-150.
Hey, that's right. Okay. All right. Well, that's good information. That's good feedback. And I'm afraid it's more because there's few contractors trained on it. Yeah. I think even if I could afford the front end, I cannot afford the good contractor who can handle it. All right. What about a tax? There's supposed to be a tax rebate coming out if you had employees through COVID. Has anyone done that?
No, I've heard commercials on the radio about it, though. There's consultants that'll do it for you for percent. Basically, it's they're refunding part of the payroll tax that you paid into the government on the payroll tax.
Okay.
That's what I've heard on the radio, but I haven't done it yet.
Any detractors from doing that? Do you think that puts you in a bad situation? Okay. All right. How about security cameras? I had a salesman on the call earlier this morning. He's wanting to sell me a security camera system. Do you guys use a integrated security system with your card access, your door controls?
I do not. It's two separate systems.
All right. And is your camera system cloud-based or is it all on-premise?
Currently on premise, but you can do either. And it's so sophisticated that you can have the PTZs where you cameras are movable, audio, zoom, you can zoom in 1,000 feet. They're incredible systems. So you can buy very basic, which we have for classrooms. We don't have a lot, but it's a good system. I've been really pleased with it. It's plug and play. Every camera has its own IP address. Got an NVR, and we can add terabyte hard drives. I got 10 terabytes now. I'm ready to add another 10 terabytes to the thing.
And 10 terabytes, or that gives you how much recording on how many cameras?
Well, with the 100 cameras I have now, the 10 terabytes is giving me basically 2 weeks of recording time.
2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's not
then
enough.
is the software that manages all of that, does it let you run really nice advanced queries to search for a color, search for
Oh, yeah.
faces?
Yeah, you can set all that up, all the analytics.
What software is that then?
It's Backstreet Surveillance. It's made here in the US. So,
Back street surveillance.
yeah, they're out of Utah,
Awesome.
and great customer service. A little bit pricey for the cameras, but we've not had any problems with them. You run a Cat 5 or Cat 6 cable, plug it in. It looks for the IP address.
But you don't have it tied to card access at all, like
No,
a camera
no.
comes on when a card reader's used.
Yeah, no, it's two separate systems. You probably could. I haven't looked into it that much, but you probably could.
Yeah, I have an Eagle Eye system that I just put in one of my buildings, and it can tie to the Brevo access system. I don't have it set up that way, but it's local storage, but it's cloud run. So it runs through the internet.
All right. Anybody else?
We're
Chris, I'm-
converting to open path access control in partnership with Ava security camera systems. So yes, they will integrate and cloud-based.
Yeah, I just spoke with them and I've tried to contact OpenPath. I was working with another vendor. Somebody else said something.
I just started to say, we're still completely analog with our cameras, run through a couple of Honeywell DVRs. We're in the process, I'm investigating switching over to a dual units that will take both IP cameras and analog. My security company handles everything. All I say, hey, what do you got? How much is it gonna cost? And then they come and install it all. So that's what I'm looking at currently. And I don't have need for all that crazy search capability. I just need something real basic that I can look at remotely.
You mentioned you're taking over a school though, so you may have this renewed, as Tori said.
Yeah, it's a very small school. It's the church that we're absorbing is about half the size of my current building, and the school is less than 100, or it's about 100 students. So I don't
You may
really
want to look at having FEMA come out and do an assessment, because you'll be surprised, even having a little school.
Mhm.
Implications of student and teacher being together, you've got to watch out. So the
Yeah.
cameras are going to save both the student and the teacher from false accusations right off
Okay.
the bat.
Okay,
Yep.
good to know. Thanks.
So analytics is important in that regard, because you
Okay.
can see things much clearer with analytics.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
We use our newest site. We have, I think, 33 cameras, and it's a hodgepodge of Eagle Eyes and 4K resolution. I think we have like a 28 terabyte system, which is way overboard than what you need. And it's not tied directly to Exact Vision as a software that we use. We have it tied to a server, but it records 28 days in the cloud. It's motion detected, so it only picks up if there's motion, so that way you don't have to go through cameras footage that is unnecessary. And our larger site, that's what we're trying, that's what we originally went for the grant, is because we have all analog, and it's, we have like 50 something cameras and they're all analog. And so running Cat 6 throughout that whole building is going to be it's a big expense. But we plan to use Exact Vision, that software, to do both sites. I do everything remotely. I can check everything remotely. It's slick.
Very good. Well, the Ava product I've looked at that Lara's talking about, and that has some really incredible analytics where you say, just show me bodies, just show me where a body crosses into another body's path. Like as Frank said, you could draw a line around every teacher's desk and see if any students come in the desk area, those kind of things where those analytics can show up at the bottom of the screen. And in addition to only recording when there's motion, it also shows you types of motion in those analytics. So it's even easier to quickly search.
Here's a funny story, because I just had the Homeland Security guy come through and took a look at cameras. And so to what Spencer is talking about how, it's just a small school. Well, this church has been around for a decent amount of time. This is the first time that I know of where we had a 13-year-old inappropriately touch another small child. And that child luckily, told their parents, and authorities got, involved. And because it's a minor, we only know a little bit, but we're able to offer camera footage and everything be as helpful as possible, but you never would expect for like, but it's nice to be like, hey, it's there. So like, we're really sensitive now because we have cameras all in the outside of the classroom, but not inside the classroom. And so our thought process before we even talk to heighten security, because we put a lot of extra panic buttons and things like that because of the issues going around earlier or late last year, was that we thought that we would put cameras in the classrooms where kids couldn't talk for themselves, so toddlers, who can't say this person touched me inappropriately. Well, then when I brought this to the agent and talked to him about our logic, he was like, well, are you going to be changing diapers? I'm like, in the nursery, yes. He was like, well, you just created child porn.
That's true.
And I was like, I would never have thought like that. Like, but he's like, you can't do it. Like, it's child porn. And I was like, whoa. Like, we would have spent probably $20,000-$30,000 running wires in there, and luckily we didn't.
Yeah, good. Good. Well, we're run out of time. It's been an hour, and I don't want to belabor things too long. And I really enjoy our time together, and I can talk till the cows come home. So I'm going to try to cut us off a little early. Is there any final questions that have come to mind that you thought, well, I've got a group of FMs here in front of me, and I'd really like to hear their thoughts real quick in the next 5 minutes? Any other thoughts? Because we've not heard from Jamie or Vicky today, so they've been very quiet.
Well, with regard to security at my church, it kind of relates to what you were talking about, the young congregation versus the old congregation. I've worked in hospitality centers and in mechanical contracting, and security was always at the top of the list. I have had numerous conversations with leadership at my church, and they don't see the value of it. I also can't confirm or deny how many people have master keys. I can't confirm or deny how many of those have been turned in when employees have exited. We do have cameras, so their solution to if someone steals stuff in the middle of the night is to look at the cameras. So it's a little bit frustrating. Maybe I didn't sell it very well, but I don't think I actually got a true opportunity to sell it. I see the value. I know the value. Everything everyone said today, I am on board with it. It's how do I get my boss and the session group to also see that?
Amen. Amen. Good.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the older part of it?
I see Paul's got his hand up. Paul, did you have something?
Yeah, this may take a little bit of time. Maybe next time we can talk about it. But we have gone to a complete lockdown as far as our building is concerned. Everything is mag locked. Everything requires a fob to get through. And we're using what's called virtual keypad. I don't know if you guys are using that or not, but I'm really not happy with it because now I have to program, like, let's say the choir rehearses every Thursday night. So I really need to set them up for 52 times in order to get that done. Because if you notice with virtual keypad, there is no way to say, okay, this is held every Thursday night at 7 o'clock. You don't have that option to do that. And you also don't have the option to say, okay, it's every other week or whatever it is. Now I can do that with my HVAC, but I cannot do it with virtual keypad. I've talked to, DCM or whatever they're called, with the maker of virtual keypad, and they said, no, we're not going to change it. And our alarm company won't change it. So it's an absolute nightmare. So I get these texts or calls from all these committee members or staff members saying, hey, I can't get in the building, and the virtual keypad's supposed to be letting them in the building, but it's not working. Is there an alternative to virtual keypad? And that's really what I'm asking for.
A lot of companies, Paul, out there offering access control. And the problem for you might be some of the hardware is already in place and you've got a different cost to deal with. And so always get 3 quotes and then see what people can do. And many companies are willing to do that integration with older equipment. But there's every new company wants to make a buck too. So there's always a cost upfit. So Lara mentioned Open Path. They could, but they would want to come in with all new readers at the doors, and some of their readers have cameras.
They can actually use existing readers. There are existing readers they can use. So depending on the system, they say it obviously depends on its configurations, but we're looking at transferring. We have an existing access control system, ProData Key, and we're transitioning from ProData Key to OpenPath. And some of our existing infrastructure is going to be able to just be turned over. So it won't have all of the benefits, but OpenPath does have that ability to schedule in all kinds of fun, unique ways. It's really great.
Yeah, Brevo does too. I would recommend finding a local integrator that can do that, because then they can sell you whatever. It doesn't have to be a certain brand. They can sell you what they can support.
Yes.
And you can get your quotes on different stuff.
Agree to that, because OpenPath has recommended vendors, recommended contractors. And to Jamie's comment, it's time for a rekey, at least a rekey of all master areas. Try to keep some of your sub keys in place, maybe to save money. But you might be at $100 a door or something like that if you can get a master keyer out, and then just leave the cameras you have in place. But and then to Paul's question about the system there, every system you use may have an API. So the concern would be, for instance, some of our church events are on a public calendar from our website. And if someone was monitoring that, they'd say, oh, that door's going to auto unlock through a program system because there's an event at the church, so I know when to come and get in. That's a bad thing, but a good thing for the choir to get in, or that committee to get in. If you build that API, many of these products will work with an API to talk to a church calendar of some sort, so that you're not having to program all 52 events into their software. And maybe that API is the question you ask when you're looking at that. So Ken says, find that local vendor. Well, that's one of the questions you're going to ask is, can it talk to the church calendar? And will it integrate that with the API is what that is, that back door to talk to the two systems, so that I'm not programming every event. And then if a church event is scheduled properly, the door is going to unlock based on that calendared software, and your predetermined algorithm or equation if you've written one.
Thank you very much.
You bet, Paul. All right, well, we've gone over an hour and 15 minutes, and I would spend another 45 with you guys easily. I really appreciate all of you jumping on here. Any final thoughts before? All right, James has not said a word and has got to talk. All right, James.
I just wanted to remind everybody that the annual conference is coming up in June. So if you plan to be with us in Tennessee, Sevierville, right outside of Knoxville, we'd love to have everybody there and show good presence. And we always have a good time.
Very good. Good feedback.
Hey,
Yeah,
Ken, I want to say rock chalk.
What in the world?
I'm in Kansas City.
And go Chiefs.
Yes.
And go Chiefs.
We got a big day tomorrow.
Yes, I wish I was there. I grew up in Overland Park.
And we digress.
Yes. So
Thanks, Chris.
We're going to be in Sevierville this year, and I'm excited about being up there. We were at Tennessee, and so that's the South for you, Jason. Actually, Tennessee is the South. So
I went to college in Tennessee, so.
All right, brother. If our VP, wants to pray us out of here, unless there's any other thoughts or concerns.
I think we're good. Jesus, thank you for this time to get together, Lord, and just meet everybody and talk things over about your house, Lord, and just direct us and show us what you'd like us to do, and just put those people in front of us that we need to meet, Lord, and bring to you. And as we go forward with everything going on in our buildings, Lord, just give us the wisdom to do it right the first time and be safe about it. Thank you, Jesus, and we love you and we thank you, and have a great day, guys.
You bet. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.